Okay, let's dive right in. Back in 2020, Apple did something that completely changed the game for its Mac computers. After using Intel chips for, 15 years, they suddenly announced they were switching to their very own chip, the M1. And this wasn't just swapping out one part for another, no. This was a total reinvention of how a computer is built from the ground up. So for years, pretty much every computer was built like the one you see on the left. You've got a main board with a bunch of separate parts plugged into it. Your main processor, your graphics card, your memory sticks, they all work together, but they're individuals, and you can often swap them out. And then Apple comes along with the M1, which is a whole different beast. Here, everything, the processor, the graphics, the memory, all of it, is literally baked into a single unified chip. Look, this was a massive shift away from how things were always done. I mean, a completely different philosophy. So you gotta ask the big question, why? Why make such a radical change? Well, the answer's kind of funny. It has less to do with laptops and everything to do with that device that's probably in your hand right now. Yup. To really get what the M1 is all about, we have to rewind the clock. It didn't start with a computer at all. It all started with Apple's biggest moneymaker, by far, the iPhone. This is where it gets really interesting. It's like a perfect chain of events. First, Apple sold a ton of iPhones and iPads, right? That brought in just enormous amounts of money. So what did they do with it? They poured billions into designing their own chips specifically for those mobile devices. Now, those chips had really tough rules to follow. They had to be super powerful, but also crazy energy efficient, because they had to live inside thin little phones with small batteries and zero fans. So year after year, they just kept pushing this mobile chip technology further and further. And eventually, something kind of crazy happened. Apple had this aha moment. They realized their own phone chips weren't just catching up to the Intel laptop chips they were buying. They were actually about to blow past them, especially when it came to how much performance you could get without draining the battery. The student had officially become the master. So this whole new way of doing things, it all comes down to one core concept. And it's a piece of tech that, honestly, has been in our phones for ages. But putting it in a laptop, that was a total game changer. It's the key to how the M1 even works. It's called a system on a chip, or you'll hear people say SoC. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a whole computer system on a single chip. Instead of having your CPU over here, your GPU over there, and your RAM somewhere else, an SoC puts them all together on one tiny piece of silicon. They're not just neighbors anymore, they're basically roommates. And I love this quote because it just nails the idea perfectly. Imagine this layered licorice candy. The different colors are like the different parts: CPU, graphics, memory. You can see the layers, but you can't just go in and decide to pull out the pink layer because you don't like it. Nope, the whole thing is one single, inseparable block. So what's actually packed into this licorice candy? Well, inside the M1, you've got a few key things. There's an 8-core CPU, but what's cool is it's split into 4 go-fast cores for heavy lifting and 4 take-it-easy cores to save power. You've got a strong GPU for all your visuals, and then there's the memory, which Apple calls unified memory, because it's one big pool that everyone can access instantly. And finally, there's this special thing, the 16-core Apple Neural Engine. Think of it as a dedicated brain for AI stuff, like recognizing your voice or sorting photos. Okay, so Apple went to all this effort, right, to put everything on one chip. What's the big payoff? Why should you care when you open up your laptop? Well, it all boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful idea: efficiency. And that efficiency creates some massive real-world advantages. Because everything's so close together, it just sips power. What does that mean for you? Insane battery life. Less wasted power also means way less heat, so the computer runs cool. So cool, in fact, that the MacBook Air doesn't even need a fan. It's totally silent. And that lets them make the designs even thinner and lighter. And that unified memory? It means everything happens way faster because data doesn't have to be copied all over the place. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This beautiful all-in-one system, that licorice candy thing, well, it comes with some pretty big downsides. There are trade-offs you just can't escape. Yeah, the other side of that coin is pretty stark. Because that RAM is physically part of the chip, you can't upgrade it, ever. Same goes for the storage. What you buy on day one is what you're stuck with for the life of the machine, period. And let's be real, those upgrades when you first buy it, they cost a lot. Of course, you're also locked into Apple's world, and you really have to make sure that any special software you need will actually run on it. So when you step back and look at the big picture, the M1 wasn't just a new processor. It was the endgame of a decade-long strategy that was born from the iPhone. Apple used the lessons and the money from its phone business to completely change its computer business, focusing on efficiency in a way nobody else really was. And that leaves us with this huge question. Is this the future? Are we seeing the end of the upgradable PC? Is the personal computer of tomorrow really just a super-powered smartphone in a different shell?